Hello, today we're going to have a look at using the stock Cessna 172 in X-Plane 11.5. It's the same in 11.4, it's just 11.5 has the Vulkan graphics drivers. I actually received a request from somebody to show programming a flight plan in LittleNavMap, then pulling it into the Cessna and doing a quick flight with it to show how things work and just to step through things in a methodical manner. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. If I just tab across to LittleNavMap, we can see I've already got it running. I'm going to cancel the dotted line off the map there. It was showing a previous trail where I've just located the aircraft. So I have my aircraft spawned at St. Johann Tyrol in Austria. We are going to program a flight plan to fly along this valley, to go around the corner, fly down over this lake, and then we'll land at Zell am See. So what do we need to do first? We need to go into the tools menu and flight simulator connection and make sure that we're connected to the correct simulator. If you've got more than one simulator, it will be connected to the last one that you had LittleNavMap connected to. So you can see it already says connected to X-Plane, which is fine, and we can see that anyway because there is an aircraft sat on the map. I don't have any AI aircraft configured, therefore you can't see anything. So we need to create a flight map. I went over how to lay out the panels in LittleNavMap in a previous video, so I'm not going to go back over everything. So let's have a look. So we right click on our our source airport, so St. Johann Tyrol, and set that as the departure. Then we right click on Zell am See and we can set that as the destination. So now we want to include some waypoints along the way. So if we zoom in slightly, we could say maybe we want one here. So add position to flight plan. Maybe we want one here. Add position to flight plan. You can see it's numbering them. You can see them over here more easily. You can set that in the settings of what that seed number is, but we don't really care at the moment. Add position to flight plan. And add position to flight plan. You can see there we're cutting the corner of that hill off slightly. That'll become interesting. You can see it here, look. Our plan is actually below the level of the hills. So add position. You don't have to be too accurate about this. We'll put a point out here, add position. Then we're going to come down over the lake. We'll maybe just to keep us away from the hillside. I mean, we don't need to worry too much because we are not going to fly into things. It's just really a visual guide when you're looking at the autopilot in the aircraft. So you can see now, even if we flew it absolutely accurately at, say if we set this for 3,500 feet, we're going to get very close to a few hillsides. So let's go for 4,000 feet. And that should keep us away. So even if we flew this exactly to the plan, we're not going to hit anything. So all I've done there is put in the start and the destination. I've ignored nav aids on the map. You can see some of them appearing. It's worth pointing out while I'm in a mountainous area, it really pays to have open topo map as your mapping setting. If you go for street map, it doesn't really show anything. If you go for topo map, and once you zoom in, it really comes into its own. You can see the contours. And all the contour lines are drawn in, and you can see the heights of the peaks, which is really useful. Okay, so we've got our plan there. So the first thing we need to do then is go to the File menu, save that to the X-Plane FMS 11 option. It comes up with a warning that some of the data won't be saved in that format, so we just carry on. And it's automatically pointing us at the X-Plane 11 output FMS plans subdirectory. And it's already given it the name of the start and destination airports. So we save that. And this will become obvious what we're doing in a moment of why we've bothered to save it, because there's a trick in many of the X-Plane aircraft to load FMS plans directly into their autopilot rather than having to key all of the fixes and the start and destination into the autopilot. So that's done. Sorry, into the GPS, not the autopilot. So that's done. So we're done with LittleNavMap at this point. So we can go over to X-Plane and we'll jump inside the aircraft, and it's cold and dark, sat here on the grass. So first thing we might do, I've got the yoke off so I can see the buttons. So you can press Y to turn the yoke on and off. First thing we're going to do is go and power up the aircraft. So master switch is on, avionics on. Turn on the lights. Taxi lights, nav lights, strobe lights. Make sure my throttle is pulled back. I'll put the mixture to rich. And there goes the engine, and it's running. So the engine's good to go. I'll just leave that as it is for the moment. So what we're really interested in is this system over here, which is the GPS system, which is linked to the autopilot. And you'll see why in a few moments once we've taken off. So if we wanted to program a flight planning, we could go and press the FPL button, and you can see it comes up with either somewhere you've been recently or previous nav points. And you can go through here and you can press the menu button and you can delete the flight plan, which you would do by rolling the mouse wheel on the roller. And you can press enter, and it's completely clear now. So it's going from here to here basically at the moment, because it doesn't know what we're doing. So the manual way of doing this would be to press the button when you're looking at the flight plan page. Press this button on the right hand side, which puts the focus inside here, and then you would roll the, is it the inner knob? Yeah, the inner knob, which lets you choose each letter of a given airport code or a navigate code, for example, and enter them into the flight plan. Now we're not going to do that. So if we, how do we get back out of here? Clear, enter, flight plan. I can never remember how to get back out of this. Clear, there we go. It's just the clear button. So while we're looking at the list, what we need to do is press the button so we don't have the focus on here, and then press the left mouse button on the outer ring. He says, famous last words. Oh, it's the inner ring, sorry. Press the left mouse button on the edge of the inner ring, and that will pull up the list of the files in the flight plans, the FMS plans directory inside X-Plane. So you can see you can then use the mouse wheel to roll up on either the inner or the outer wheel to go through the options that are in here. Now we know we are going from LOIJ to LOLZ, so that's the file we just saved. So we can highlight it by using the mouse to roll over it, and then we can click on enter. And that has loaded our flight plan in. We can zoom out to see, oh, zooming in, sorry. We can zoom out to see it in detail. But we're not really interested in it until we're in the air. So that's loaded the plan in. So as a backup to looking out of the windscreen, we can actually look on the map down here on the GPS system and see the flight plan mapped out for us. So let's actually just go and fly that quickly to see how it works and how it interoperates with the autopilot. So the first thing we need to do is taking the parking brake off. I'll drop the flaps one as well before we even get there. So I'm just pulling off the grass, use the nose wheel steering to do a nice tight turn. So we're just going to go down to the end of this runway, backtrack down the runway, and then take off roughly in the direction we want to be going, because we want to be travelling eastwards, so we're going westwards along the runway. Looks like quite clear weather, which is nice. Sometimes you get low cloud in the valleys. It's worth pointing out I'm using realistic weather and realistic time of day, so this is apparently as the simulator thinks it is right now in the Austrian valleys. So let's put the brakes on. Right, full nose wheel lock. We probably won't quite make it, we'll go into the rough grass. Just go gently. Yeah, we're into the rough grass. So we have to open the engine up to push the nose wheel through the rough dirt and back onto the runway. Gently out. And straighten the aircraft up. I'll turn the yokes back on while we're here. Okay, so we are heading out at there's a heading bug on the compass which you can move around. It's quite useful to point at the direction of the runway, so you've got a very easy marker to know if you're still flying in the runway direction, because until you go and switch the autopilot on while you're trimming the aircraft out, you're flying it by hand, and it's kind of just good to know. So open the throttles up, balance the plane on the steering, because obviously torque from the engine is trying to turn us. So hold, once you get thrust down the body of a Cessna, that's going to hit the tailplane anyway from a propeller, so that becomes far more responsive than thinking about nose wheel steering for steering the aircraft down the runway. So we get some speed up and we're already in the air. Okay, so we'll just gently climb out, following that heading bug, get some speed up, and then we can raise the flaps. So we're doing 60 knots, but we're still climbing quite strongly. So I guess we want to climb out to about, so the speed is coming up gently. I'll lift the flaps. I guess if we climb to about 3,500 feet, we should be good. So we're at 2,500 at the moment. I'll keep going in a straight line. Now if you look over here, you can see we're flying towards that first waypoint on our route, and it's pink on the leg that we're on. It will automatically progress through the legs if you stay fairly close to your flight plan. So I'm letting go of the stick now, so we're pretty much trimmed out. We're just gently climbing up through 3,000 feet, coming up. So when we get to 3,500 feet, I will switch on the autopilot. Actually, I could do it now, couldn't I? So if I go heading mode, it's going to follow the heading bug, so it's going to turn slightly right. It's doing that all on its own. We'll go vertical speed mode as well. It's defaulted to the vertical speed we're doing right now, which I'm guessing is 700 feet a minute. That's why it's showing 7. So at the moment the aeroplane is just going to keep doing that. If we were to move the heading bug this way a few degrees, it will do that all on its own. Now you can see if we zoom in, which is downwards on these arrows, we're departing from the planned flight. So what we could do is go to nav mode. Now there are 2 nav modes and the button will toggle between them. One is based on the nav radios, the other is on the GPS. So if I press it the first time, that's looking for nav radios, but I haven't tuned them in. So if I press nav again, it's lit up. Let's zoom in. It's lit up and it's saying GPS. So that means it's taking account of what was programmed into the GPS, not the nav radios, and that's what we want. So what it's done is automatically turned back to intersect the leg we were on. It has, I guess it has a range of angles it will intersect at based on, you know, how far away you are from the line and how long the line is. So now it's automatically gone to the next leg. And you can see we're just flying along quite happily now. We're still climbing, we're up to 4,000 feet, so we'll go and press the altitude button, which is going to lock us at that altitude. So now we can come back off the engine a bit to stop ourselves accelerating, doing just over 100 knots. And again, to prove I'm not going to touch anything, we should come up to the next nav point and the aeroplane should turn all on its own. So should we go and have a look outside? So you can see we're outside, it's a bit noisier out here. We're flying along and the plane, I've let go of everything, the plane should start turning and there it goes, all on its own. So it's following the GPS via the autopilot because it's in nav GPS mode. It's holding altitude because it's in altitude hold mode. The Cessna doesn't have an auto throttle, so I've just set the throttle at what seems about right for the flight we're on. Okay, so we can go and look back inside. So to shorten this flight up so it's not very boring of us just flying along the valleys watching it happen, I'm going to accelerate X-Plane. Now X-Plane has a special mode where you can accelerate your speed over the ground. So it's really good for if you're just testing things out or navigating over a long distance and you're not with anybody else, so you just want to get there quickly. You can press Alt and T on the keyboard, and as you repeatedly do it, you will go twice the ground speed, 4 times the ground speed, 8 times and 16 times the ground speed, and then back to 1 again. So what it actually does, the simulator runs at the normal rate it's already running. It just multiplies your speed over the ground. So once we've made the next turn, I will start doing it, so you'll see it happen. So we're just coming. I don't want to do it on a turn, because remember, it won't speed anything else up. So the plane will start turning as if it was making the same radius turn it wanted to, but we might have told it to go 8 times further over the ground. So suddenly the radius of our turn will be massively wrong, because all of the rest of the systems are behaving as if the aeroplane is all in the same time frame, if that makes sense. So let that straighten up. Should just miss that hillside. So we know, for example, we are travelling at 4,000 feet. So we could come back into LittleNavMap, and yes, it's got 4,000 feet. So those, you can see those hillsides we are just missing, just along here. You can see those are the close points on that map as well. So if we come back in here, that is that hillside. So I'm going to press Alt-T 8 times, 16 times, and back to 1, and let it make the turn. Obviously there must be some wind kicking off these hills, because you saw the trim push the nose up there. So we'll let it straighten up for the next leg, and then we'll accelerate our ground speed again, just to get the flight to progress on. So if we go and have a look actually at X-Plane, you can see there is a dotted line that follows the path our aircraft has been on. We can zoom in and have a look. So we're just coming up for this next leg towards the main turn, back down towards our destination. So I'm going to tab across and then go Alt-T, speed it up, so it's following the track completely on the autopilot. So we're getting close to the turn, and Alt-T, back to 1. Again, we can go and look at this very closely. You can see us approaching the programmed turn. It's still in nav GPS mode, so it's the equivalent of lateral navigation on the big airliners. We can have a look outside the window, scenery. So we're going to come down this valley over the lake, and the airport we're going to is just around the corner. Look at some of the hills. This is the stock scenery in X-Plane 11, by the way. I've not got any add-on packs for it at all. So this is completely stock. It's just showing realistic weather, realistic time of day, with the stock weather, with the stock scenery. Okay, so we will wait for the aeroplane to straighten itself up. We're just watching this slowly rotate. It's being pushed around a little bit by the wind, so it's pushing against the wind slightly. So we are going to accelerate time again. What we could do, I guess, is go and descend a little bit. So we'll go to vertical speed mode, and we will make it descend at perhaps 10, or I guess that's 1,000 feet a minute. So we'll let it get a bit lower. Come down to 3,500 feet maybe, and then press Alt again to hold the altitude. So that's done that. So this isn't flying at all, is it? This is pressing buttons on autopilots. Told the airplane to go a bit lower basically, and just moderated the throttle so we didn't go screaming into a dive. Okay, so we'll accelerate our time again. So we're zooming along the ground, and we're coming to the final turn of our plan. And if we look outside now, there is the airport that we are heading for. If we have a look on the map, we can scroll down this way. There is LittleNavMap. So we're about to make the turn. So if we come back into X-Plane, it's making the turn. So at this point I'm going to go back into the aircraft and I'm going to cut the autopilot. So I'm going to fly past the runway, over the copse of trees at the far end, turn round and come back in nice and gently. Let's just get it trimmed back out. Start dropping the flaps in a moment to slow us down and to give us some more lift. I guess in the real world obviously you'd be talking to air traffic control and getting clearance to land. So I've completely disabled the autopilot. I'm on fully manual control of the aircraft. It's turning round. There's the runway. Get rid of some speed. And we'll just gently come in. And we're down. Wheel brakes. Can we make the turn? Yeah, easily. Okay, so nose wheel steering. Pull us back round. Raise the flaps while we're on our way back. Park in between these two aircraft. Should do it. So if we look down in the cockpit and press Y to get rid of the yokes so we can see it, there's the parking brakes. Whoops, there's the parking brake. Actually, let's get rid of the yokes again. So we're going to turn all the lights back off. Going to lean the engine out. Turn off the master switches, turn the avionics off, and we're good. Put the yokes back on. So there we go. That was the example flight, flying in a Cessna 172, using the GPS and using LittleNavMap to plan our route, to save it and to import it into the Cessna. So there we go. That'll do for today.